Hello, I'm Michael Cottingham, and today we are going to talk about a marvelous medicine plant. We're going to be talking about ginger root, and we're going to make a fresh root extract and talk about some of its medicinal uses a bit. Ginger is kind of the common name, and everybody pretty much knows it as ginger, and the Latin is Zingiber officinale, or Zingiber officinalis, depending on which source you are reading. It is a famous medicine plant in the Chinese tradition. In fact, the origins of ginger are probably from southern China, and this plant has been used by the Chinese herbalists for thousands and thousands of years. It spread out of southern China, making its way through the trade routes into India and into the Indonesia and eventually into Africa and the Caribbean. Quite widespread, found in the tropics and semi-tropics, grown tons and tons, and hundreds of tons of ginger root is grown worldwide and makes its way into the marketplaces and medicine cabinets everywhere. So the Chinese have a very unique way of talking about or describing ginger as far as some of its medicinal benefits. And just briefly, some of the categories of descriptions that the Chinese give to ginger is it causes sweating and releases the exterior and scatters wind cold, and it stimulates the lungs and expels phlegm and relieves pain, which makes ginger root marvelous for the onset of a cold or flu, where there is a cold or chilliness coupled with fatigue and achy kind of cold feeling in the body, shivers and chills and such. Ginger root tea and ginger root extract is marvelous for dispelling this exterior and penetrating type of wind cold. It also warms and invigorates the stomach and intestines and dispels cold there as well. It awakens the appetite, moves stagnancy, and settles into the stomach and relieves nausea, which makes ginger root tea and using ginger root in your food as a spice slash food slash medicine makes it very good for promoting digestion and for helping to move stagnancy out of the upper and lower GI, which in Western cultures and in more affluent cultures, the upper and lower GI tend to be cold, stuck, and stagnant. The opposite of that would be somebody who had a upper GI ulcer, and which might lead to which would be more of a heat type of condition. So a percentage of the folks in the world with their digestive disturbances and digestive illnesses and such have a heat, and so in that case ginger might be somewhat contraindicated. It is a plant that creates heat. It's a plant that helps to move cold, stagnant conditions and promotes circulation and blood flow. So you probably in general would be cautious or would not want to use it in conditions where you already have too much heat going on. So if you had a upper GI ulcer, a stomach ulcer, that would be a condition I would consider as a heat condition. So ginger might exacerbate or make the ulcer a little more hot and a little bit more painful. In the lower GI, if you had something like ulcerative colitis, although ginger eventually could become a very good ally in helping promote better digestion in the upper and lower gastrointestinal tract, initially, if you had a ulcerative colitis condition, which is another form of, it's another ulcer, like a bacterial ulcer or stomach ulcer in the upper GI. Ulcerative colitis is more directed for ulceration in the lower GI, which is another heat type of condition. So ginger might exacerbate or make that condition a little too hot. So be careful with using ginger in conditions where you already tend to run hot or inflamed, especially with the mucous membranes. But that's a small percentage of people, maybe 20–30% as a general statistic. Most people tend to be cold and stagnant in their upper and lower GI. So, you know, that's another area of usage for it, is in promoting digestion. The fresh ginger root tea or the extract of ginger also stimulates and warms the uterus, promotes the menses, and frees spasms. So it's a great antispasmodic for menstrual cramping and for women who have slow or kind of stagnant or clotty, spotty types of menstrual cycles where the blood flow is impaired and scant and kind of clotty and kind of spotty. So drinking ginger root tea and using the fresh root extract is really good in promoting better menstrual flow, and with of course with a lot less spasms, because it is a warming antispasmodic by its own nature. It also activates the immunity and restrains infections. So in general, because it promotes such great circulation and enhances both peripheral and more interior, deeper forms of circulatory effect, it improves circulation on many different levels, and that is a great ally to the immune system when we can improve circulation. Well, let's go on and start our class more officially, and we'll talk about the making of the fresh root extract. Well, those of you who have been studying with me for a while know that well, we've done a few fresh plant extracts and some dry plant extracts, and there are various videos here in my on my YouTube channel. So I'm not going to go super deep in depth with fresh plant extract making. I'm just going to show you and recap. And today we're going to do the fresh ginger root. And here is a lovely ginger root specimen, and it's Zingiber officinale or officinalis, depending on which book or which source you're citing. And here's some chopped ginger root all ready to go, and for the fresh plant extract. And remember, fresh plant extract, this is a fresh root extract. It's done as a 1:2 ratio, which means 1 part herb to 2 parts liquid. In this case, we have 400 grams of the chopped up root. That's what's going to be going into the jar with the alcohol poured over it. So we have 400 grams of the root, which means we need to double this amount because it's a 1:2, so 2 times 4 gives us 800 milliliters, because now we're going from the weight or the solid measurement to liquid. So it's milliliters at this point, but it's just basically a doubling of your amount up here to get to the amount of liquid that you need in a 1:2 fresh plant extract. And in this case, we are using 95% alcohol, which is the alcohol that I prefer to use in most cases. And remember, I like to get my alcohol from a place called Alchemical Solutions. And on the container, it always, sometimes it'll mention the percentage of alcohol, but so many places, whether you go to a liquor store or whether you go to you know, a place like Alchemical Solutions to get your organic alcohol, they talk about proof. And so this is 190 proof. And if you want to know the percentage of alcohol that is actually in a container with proof on it, just divide by 2 and you will get, in this case, 190 proof. 190 divided by 2 is 95%, or 95% alcohol is the amount. This is organic cane alcohol, and that's my favorite to use. It's not a bad tasting alcohol, and of course it's organic, and it's made from non-GMO cane, and has all the important parts taken care of. Organic and non-GMO, as far as I'm concerned, is important to strive for in your medicine making and in your food eating, your diet. But anyways, so we have 400 grams of the chopped root, and we need 800 milliliters, and we have that 800 milliliters of alcohol already measured out over there. And oops, excuse me, a little jostling, but so basically 1 to 2 is 1 part of the plant material by weight to 2 parts alcohol by volume. Fresh root extracts are really easy to make. It's basically the fresh herb chopped up as uniformly as possible, and so that you don't have big pieces, little pieces, irregular sized pieces, but a fairly even chopped consistency. And here we're just putting the chopped root into a lovely half-gallon mason jar. And I love fresh ginger root extract, because ginger root has so many medicinal aromatics, and it's really you know, and after you just have taken whole roots and chopped them up, you're releasing, and the oils, the aromatic oils, are mixing in with oxygen, and they're getting released, and this is a perfect time to capture them and pull them into the alcohol, because those medicinal oils are very antibacterial, they're antiviral, and they also are very good for stimulating really distinct circulation in the body. And you're gonna not get that same pronounced effect if you use dry ginger root. Dry ginger root well, it makes a good medicine, but it's nowhere near as elegant and as potent as fresh ginger roots just chopped up and then just put right into alcohol minutes after being chopped up. And in this case, I don't show you the chopping part, but it's basically I just put the fresh ginger roots on a cutting board with a nice culinary knife and just slice and chop them up, and they're good to go. And so that's it. That is a fresh ginger root extract done as a 1 to 2, and that's all. I mean, your labels can have all kinds of complex information on them, or they can just say ginger or ginger root 1 to 2, the date, so that you can come back in 2 weeks and strain this out and then put it in your tincture bottles, and you're good to go as a medicine. So ginger, Zingiber officinale or officinalis, and we just made a fresh root extract done in a 1 to 2 ratio. In this case, it was 400 grams of root, and we just doubled that amount, and we got 800 milliliters of alcohol that was necessary, and we used the 95% organic cane alcohol. And just to throw this out here, this has nothing to do with anything here, but let's say we were doing it in the non-metric, or in the, you know, using ounces. So let's say we had 10 ounces by weight of chopped up ginger root. 10 ounces of the chopped up ginger root means we need 20 ounces of the liquid, 20 ounces of the alcohol at 95%, and that would still hold to the 1 to 2 ratio. And so that's pretty much it. It's a very simple, elegant way. You know, a lot of people make their extracts in kind of a simpler fashion, or in just a folk fashion, which is just basically take your chopped material, put it in a jar, and then cover up about a ½ inch to 1 inch above the material, and they call that a fresh plant extract. And believe it or not, probably 50% of the time they are right on with their folk measurements. But I do like to use this old method of actually weighing the plant and then measuring the liquid, and try to do this consistently time after time with each and every ginger root extract. And the advantage of actually keeping to the 1 to 2 ratio and to the weighing and measuring is that if I make 100 jars of this over a few years time, they're pretty much going to be consistently the same, because my measurements were specific. And so I like to do that with my medicine making, even though that folk method of just chopping material, shoving it in the jar, and then covering it like an inch above, for the most part, comes close to being very accurate. You know, and sometimes you may want to do that because you just don't have a scale, you just don't have a measuring cup, and you're in the field. And there's nothing wrong with doing it that way without measuring, but if you want medicine that is consistent time after time after time, stick to the measuring ratio, the 1:2, measuring out your plant material and measuring out your liquid material, and your medicines will stay more consistent over a longer period of time that way. And then you can stick to accurate dosages and get you know, concrete and very specific results time after time when your extract was made in a very specific, exact fashion. Then your dosages remain exact and specific, and then your end results should be specific. So I like to measure. So well, first I'd like to say that yes, my mother did teach me not to wear hats indoors, but I kind of like to do it here anyways. I don't know why. Maybe it's my signature statement when doing herbal medicine, maybe not. But let's talk about let's talk about ginger root, or fresh ginger root more specifically, since that is my favorite way of using the plant. I think of ginger as one of our best circulatory aids, one of our best plants to stimulate movement in the body very effectively, and to bring movement and warmth. And since in my concept of working with herbal clients, and as a clinical herbalist who works with a variety of different clients for a variety of different illnesses and diseases, there's a common thread in so many illnesses and diseases, especially in our culture, and that is a stuck, stagnant, cold, chronic, stuck, overall, really lack of movement type of common denominator woven into so many illnesses and diseases. And so one of the things you think about is like, what kind of movement do I need to cause here? Do I need to improve circulation overall? Do I need to have lung movement? Do I need to have movement that is more centered around the upper and the lower GI? And so I often think in terms of like, what kind of movement do I need to create in this health crisis, in this chronic condition, in this person who's sick? Where do we want to go with this? How do we want to get it out of the body? And since most illnesses and diseases have a common denominator of having a stuck condition, a stagnancy to them, ginger becomes a vital plant. Ginger is a plant that creates movement. Ginger is a plant that warms up, penetrates cold blockages and cold stuck conditions. A great example is a hot cup of ginger root tea, or the fresh root extract, like 20-30 drops added to a cup of tea or a cup of warm water. And let's say you have a lung infection with lots of mucus and lots of coughing, and just you're stuck here with lots of phlegm and lots of mucus. So here's a great example of the penetrating power of this plant. This plant, by drinking ginger root tea, hot cups of tea, or good-sized doses of the extract, like 30-40 drops, you're putting this warming and this circulatory, this penetrating effect into your body, which is literally breaking and pushing out the cold, stuck, stagnant condition that in that case is in the lungs, or in the sinuses and lungs. So that's the actions of ginger is what you want to think about. The actions of ginger, that it's warming, it's penetrating, it's warming, penetrating, pushing cold, dispelling cold wind out of the body in a very, very powerful way. And that's kind of what we need. I mean, we don't need like, some magic medicine or some super explosive type of medicine. We need something that just goes in and creates circulation, creates movement in a stuck condition. And so you often have stuck conditions in the lung, the sinuses, the stomach, the upper GI, the lower GI, which when there's a suspected cold or stagnancy, when there's a sluggishness, when there's lack of movement, lack of circulation, use ginger root. It creates and facilitates. Remember, I keep talking about, throughout my videos, I keep talking about creating circulatory effect and creating lymphatic movement and creating a anti-inflammatory or decreasing inflammation effect. And so, you know, three major categories of herbs: the circulatory, the lymphatic, and the anti-inflammatories. Three categories that are at the foundation of most herbal practice. And ginger is one of those. In Chinese medicine, ginger is considered a servant or like an emissary herb. It works really well with others. It kind of goes in and creates a circulatory effect, an opening effect, a penetrating, trailblazing effect, because it is circulatory, it is warming, it is penetrating, it is moving. And this action, so if there's a little ginger root in your herbal formulas, the ginger root in those formulas is it's going to carry the other herbs along with it. So those herbs arrive to their destination with more specificness and more effectiveness. So ginger is often considered an emissary type of herb or a servant herb. It does a lot of work in the body and helps other herbs work better. Ginger is antibacterial, antiviral, and it's mostly because of the aromatics. There are a whole array of chemical constituents in ginger that are responsible for different medicinal actions, and you can read about them and memorize the chemical names and the associated aspects. But very chemically complex, but nothing too dangerous or nothing too out of the ordinary to worry about. Because it is heating and because it is warming and moving, it's probably not applicable. You know, it has some contraindications that are basically common sense. Contraindications, you wouldn't want to use this when you already have super hot conditions like a stomach ulcer or ulcerative colitis, or let's say you have excessive menstrual cycles, lots of bleeding, or it's the first trimester of pregnancy, where basically in pregnancy, in a lot of philosophies in Chinese medicine, specifically, pregnancy is considered like a stuck condition, a stuck blood condition, and obviously you want to keep it stuck. Because ginger is so effective in moving, maybe not applicable in the first trimester, especially if there's a history of miscarriages or you know, irregular, very you know, like maybe the woman had a hard time conceiving, her fertility cycles were off, her menstrual cycles were off, her overall gynecological health wasn't that well, but now she's conceived and she has a child, and maybe she has a history of miscarriages. You might want to be careful with plants that are warming and moving and that create lots of circulation in those cases. Although in the latter end of the first trimester and into the second trimester, especially when there's morning sickness, ginger root tea, very light cups of ginger root tea, is considered a great remedy for things like motion sickness and morning sickness and nausea, and it helps to dispel that out of the body. So it has a great history of being used in morning sickness. I would just say keep common sense in mind when using and looking for contraindications. Also with anticoagulating drugs, you might not, because the ginger is so good at improving blood flow and increasing circulation and making for a nice thinner viscosity of the blood. Instead of having thicker blood, you have thinner, healthier blood by the use of ginger root tea. So if you're going for, if you're on a drug that is anticoagulating in nature, then be careful with using ginger root. It's actually contraindicated for some of the anticoagulating drugs out there. But the overall medicinal benefits of improving circulation through using ginger root is like one of the finest cornerstone plants for circulatory effect and for improving circulation and for accompanying other herbs in formulas to get those herbs to arrive to their destination. The aromatic oils and resins that are in ginger root are very vasodilating and very bronchial dilating for the lungs and great for sinuses, and you breathe better and such. So ginger root is so versatile. I mean, it's one of my favorite herbs, the fresh ginger root extract, to put into many formulas, especially respiratory formulas and stomach formulas and general immune system formulas. It's like I was saying, it's my servant herb, it's my emissary herb. It's the herb that opens up the pathway for the other herbs to arrive to do their work. And so ginger's probably, for me, is in my top 5 most used medicine plants, top 10 for sure, and mostly because of that circulatory effect, that circulatory action that ginger provides is really what's needed in so many chronic illnesses and diseases. It's a very good lung herb. It really helps to move out phlegm and congestion. It's an excellent herb for improving digestion and overall promoting better digestive health. And when you, especially in the West, and especially in the affluent countries where the food is rich and there's abundance of food, and we tend to eat more than we need to, and we also don't have enough movement or exercise, and our lifestyle is more sedentary than not. The upper and lower GI in most Western countries is very stagnant, is very cold, is very there's an absence of movement. And so when you put something as simple as ginger root tea into the equation, into your dietary equation on a regular basis, you will find that maybe a whole variety of different problems start to clear up. Skin rashes and eczemas and dermatitises that you haven't been able to pinpoint down what's causing them, or what I call digestive insomnia, people who have really cold, stuck, stagnant digestive scenarios going on. They tend to eat their food and it tends to sit there, it tends to take a long time digesting, and if they eat later in the day, they can have what I call digestive insomnia. Had they been able to effectively digest their food, process, eliminate, break it down, get it down into the lower intestinal tract to be finished up, they don't go to bed heavy feeling and stuck feeling, which does cause a form of insomnia, especially in Western cultures. It's a dietary insomnia. It's a digestive inability. It's the inability to digest your food, and coupled with stress and coupled with eating really late in the day, the food just sits there. You toss and turn. Everything's thrown off your body clock, and so most people don't correlate insomnia with poor digestion, but it is amazing when you improve digestion how you start to have better night's sleep. Ginger, in many of its countries of early use, like southern China and India, for thousands of years, ginger has been considered a powerful aphrodisiac. And mostly, I mean, that just equates or equals out to the fact that ginger improves circulation. It invigorates the blood. It creates better blood flow. And if you're looking for legitimate aphrodisiacs, plants or substances that increase sexual vitality, and if you live in the West and you have a sedentary lifestyle and you eat too much food and you have poor digestion, ginger becomes actually a very effective aphrodisiac type of plant, because basically it's improving circulation, it's invigorating the blood, it's creating more movement, and by doing this, yeah, sure, you get an aphrodisiac-like effect. And mostly it's because you can peel it back far enough and say the person just had really poor circulation in their extremities, they have really poor digestion, they have really slow blood movement, and they have almost a tendency to have more stagnant, thicker viscosity of blood that's thick blood and slow in moving and almost polluted blood. So when you use ginger root tea or the extract of ginger root, you clean up the blood, you invigorate the blood, you move the blood, you eliminate more waste, you vasodilate tiny little capillaries, and this can have a profound effect on many aspects of your health, including an aphrodisiac-like effect. So, I mean, if I really wanted to capture people's attention with a video like this, I title it like the ultimate aphrodisiac plant medicine in the world, because it kind of is, because poor circulation is pretty widespread, and poor circulation leads to a lot of chronic illnesses and diseases, and poor circulation leads to lymphatic congestion, which then in turn leads to more chronic inflammatory effects in the body, more chronic inflammation. And so ginger is also an anti-inflammatory. And there is a very amazing, you can take some fresh ginger root extract and fresh turmeric extract and maybe even a little yerba manzа extract, if you know that plant, and combine those three together, and you have an amazing circulatory and anti-inflammatory medicine that is very pronounced, very penetrating, and its effects are felt within just a few days by many people. You know, you might, if you were to make a formula of those plants that I just mentioned, fresh ginger root, maybe 50% of the formula, fresh turmeric root extract, maybe 40% of the formula, and maybe 10% yerba manzа thrown in there. Or if you didn't know about yerba manzа or didn't have it, then just fresh root extract of ginger and fresh extract root of turmeric, 50-50. And try that. That's pretty profound. That's a pretty profound thing, because you're going to, you know, distinctly and massively improve circulation, and you're going to get this anti-inflammatory effect to take place at the same time. And you're going to feel the effects from a, especially if you're using fresh root extract of both the ginger and the turmeric. A great marriage of two plants. And oh gosh, 100 plus uses between those two plants when they come together. So just to, you know, to recap, and maybe it'll stimulate some other thoughts about ginger root. I like to use this in a lot of formulas because it's a great circulatory herb. It helps the other herbs work better. It's really great for the lungs. It's really great to improve digestion. It's really great to improve circulation everywhere in the body. This could be considered a really good herb for women and men to improve pelvic circulation when they have a history of eating too many fats and a history of poor absorption and elimination of fats, and they have poor, sluggish circulation going on, thick blood viscosity, and they tend to get stuck down in the lower GI and down in the pelvic area. And this is a great plant to improve circulation everywhere in the body, but it works in some areas a tad bit better than others. You know, the upper and lower respiratory, the upper and lower GI, the pelvic area, and this covers a wide range of illnesses and diseases. And you know, if you have a partner who's having you know, a hard time, or not a hard time, but you have a partner who has like really problems, you know, sexual dysfunctions and erectile dysfunctions and lack of movement in the pelvic area, both for men and women, this is a great plant to try. It doesn't cost very much, and it's very effective, and you might be really amazed, and you definitely are going to feel better. Anytime we can improve our circulation in our body, we're going to feel better, and we're going to have better digestion, better respiration, better waste elimination. I love this plant, and so this is a very significant herbal medicine. In Chinese medicine, they have a taste concept where you need 5 tastes for complete digestive health and complete health, and that is you need substances that are salty and sweet and sour and acrid and bitter. So there's a coming out of old China and coming out of the Chinese herbology, there's the 5 taste concept. And most foods in Western cultures you know, there's plenty of sweets, and there's plenty of salt, and there's plenty of sours, and there's plenty of acids. But the one that's missing is bitters. And if you use the peel, keep the peel on the ginger roots. And when you go to make your fresh plant extract, you don't peel the outer bark, the outer part of the root. Leave the peel on, because that's where some of the bitter constituents are. And some species, not all ginger roots, but you know, maybe 60–70% of all ginger roots, depending on the conditions they were grown in and such, but they have all 5 of the tastes. And that makes, like, ginger one of the very few herbal medicines that contain, you know, a salty aspect, a acrid aspect, a sweet aspect, a bitter aspect, and a sour aspect. And so I think that I said all 5 of the tastes: salt, sweet, acrid, sour, and bitter. And one of the few herbal medicines that actually contain all 5 of the tastes. Especially if you use the outer peel, you get the bitters. And that is why ginger becomes a premier digestive herb. One of the finest for promoting better digestion, especially in people who have cold, stuck, stagnant conditions. And I'm sure I could go on about ginger for a long time and keep recalling various uses of it, but that's just a little bit of how to make a fresh root extract from ginger root, and a little bit of its medicinal uses, and some of the more ethereal concepts of its medical applications, and cold, damp, and stuck kind of concepts, all wrapped up into this one plant. And this one plant helps us to illustrate a lot of points. And I appreciate you listening, and I'm Michael Cottingham, and thank you very much.